The stars looked different from this far out in space. Lee Tae-ho pressed his face against the cold window of the human ship, New Seoul, and watched the alien lights dance in the distance. He had dreamed of this moment his whole life, but now that it was here, his hands shook with fear. "First contact in 30 minutes, Captain Park So-min announced over the ship's speakers. Her voice sounded calm, but Tae-ho could hear the worry underneath. They were about to meet aliens for the first time in human history. Tae-ho walked to the meeting room where Ambassador Kim Woo-jin was checking his notes for the 100th time. The older man looked up with tired eyes. "Ready for this, young man?" Kim asked. "As ready as anyone can be for something impossible," Tae-ho replied. He was the ship's expert on alien life, though he had never actually seen any. All his knowledge came from books and guesses. The alien ships appeared on their screens like floating cities made of silver and blue light. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Each one was 10 times bigger than the human ship. "They're sending a message," the communications officer called out. Strange sounds filled the bridge like music mixed with the roar of ocean waves. The translation computer worked for a few seconds, then made a horrible buzzing sound and went silent. Smoke came out of its circuits. "The translator is broken," Captain Park said. "We're going in blind." A bright light filled the space between the ships. When it faded, a figure stood in their docking bay. The alien was tall, taller than any human Tae-ho had ever seen. Her skin looked like blue crystal, and her eyes glowed like stars. She wore robes that seemed to move like liquid metal. "I am Queen Vela of the Corvani Empire," she said in perfect English, though her voice sounded like it came from deep underwater. "You are the humans we have heard about." Ambassador Kim stepped forward and bowed. "Your Majesty, I am Kim Woo-jin, representative of Earth. We come in peace." Queen Vela looked at each human with curiosity. When her eyes met Tae-ho's, he felt like she could see into his soul. "Your species is smaller than we expected," she said, "but you have traveled far from your home world. That shows courage." Captain Park led them to the conference room, but as they walked, warning lights began flashing. The ship's computer announced, in a mechanical voice, "Reactor overload detected. All personnel evacuate immediately." The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The ship shook violently. "The cooling system failed," someone shouted from the engine room. "The reactor will explode in 3 minutes." Everyone ran toward the escape pods, but Queen Vela stood frozen in the hallway. Her glowing eyes had gone dim, and she was breathing hard. "What's wrong?" Tae-ho asked, running back to her. "The energy waves from your reactor," she gasped. "They interfere with my life systems. I cannot move." Tae-ho looked at the escape pods, then at the alien queen. He could save himself, or he could try to help her. Without thinking, he made his choice. "Captain Park!" he yelled. "I need the emergency medical kit." "Tae-ho, we have 2 minutes," she shouted back. "Just throw it to me." The medical kit slid across the floor. Tae-ho grabbed it and pulled out the portable oxygen mask. He put it over Queen Vela's face. "This might help," he said. Not sure if it would work on an alien. Queen Vela's eyes began to glow brighter. She could move again, but slowly. "The reactor room," Tae-ho said. "If I can restart the cooling system manually, the energy waves will..." "Stop! That room will kill you," Queen Vela said. "Maybe. But if I don't try, we all die anyway." Tae-ho ran to the reactor room. The heat hit him like a wall of fire. His skin burned and he could barely breathe. The control panel was on the other side of the room, past pipes that glowed white-hot. He crawled under the pipes, ignoring the pain as the metal burned through his clothes. His hands found the manual restart switch. It was stuck. He pulled with all his strength, and finally it moved. The cooling system hummed to life. The dangerous energy waves stopped. The ship stopped shaking. Tae-ho collapsed on the floor, his body covered in burns. He had done it, but he was not sure he would survive. Strong arms lifted him up. Queen Vela had come into the reactor room to get him. Her crystal skin was not hurt by the heat. "Why did you risk your life for me?" she asked as she carried him to safety. "Because it was the right thing to do," Tae-ho whispered before he passed out. When he woke up in the medical bay, Queen Vela was sitting beside his bed. Her glowing eyes watched him with something that looked like wonder. "In all my years ruling the Corvani Empire," she said, "I have never seen such bravery. You saved my life without thinking of yourself." "Anyone would have done the same," Teho said, trying to sit up. "No," Queen Vela said firmly. "They would not. Most species we have met think only of their own survival. But you risked everything, for someone you had just met, someone who was not even your own species." Ambassador Kim and Captain Park entered the medical bay. They looked worried. "Your Majesty," Kim said carefully, "we hope this incident will not harm our chances for peaceful relations." Queen Vela stood up. Her tall form filled the room with blue light. "On the contrary," she said, "this young human has shown me something remarkable about your species. You have qualities we have been searching for across the galaxy." She looked directly at Teho. "Li Teho, by saving my life, you have created what my people call a life bond. This is a sacred connection that must be honored according to our ancient laws." Teho felt confused. "What does that mean?" Queen Vela's expression became serious, almost formal. "It means you must come with me to the Corvani homeworld. There you will face a choice that will determine the fate of both our species." The medical bay fell silent. Everyone stared at the alien queen. "What kind of choice?" Captain Park asked. Queen Vela's glowing eyes fixed on Teho again. "That," she said, "will be revealed when the time comes. But know this. The choice you make will either bind our peoples together forever or separate them for all time." As Teho looked into those alien eyes, he realized his simple act of kindness had changed everything, not just for him, but for all of humanity. 3 days later, Teho found himself on the biggest spaceship he had ever seen. The Corvani royal vessel was like a flying city, with halls so wide that 50 humans could walk side by side. Everything glowed with soft blue light, and the walls seemed to be made of living crystal. Dr. Choi Yu-na walked beside him, carrying her recording devices. She was the ship's expert on different cultures, and her job was to help humans understand alien ways of life. "I've been studying their language patterns," she whispered to Teho. "The Corvani speak in layers of meaning. When they say one thing, they might mean 3 different things." "That's not helpful right now," Teho said nervously. They were heading to the throne room where Queen Vela waited. Ambassador Kim had wanted to come too, but the Queen had specifically asked for only Teho and Dr. Choi. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling was so high that clouds seemed to form near the top. Queen Vela sat on a throne made of what looked like frozen starlight. Around her stood other Corvani, all tall and glowing, but none as bright as the Queen. One of them, a Corvani with silver markings on her crystal skin, stepped forward. Her eyes were cold and unfriendly. "I am General Nora," she said. "I advise the Queen on military matters. I do not understand why we waste time with these small creatures." Queen Vela raised her hand, and General Nora became silent. "Li Teho," the Queen said, her voice echoing in the vast room. "Step forward." Teho walked across the smooth floor, feeling very small. When he reached the throne, Queen Vela stood up. She was even taller than he remembered. "3 days ago, you saved my life," she said. "By the ancient laws of my people, this creates a life bond between us. Do you understand what this means?" "Not really," Teho admitted. An old Corvani with white crystal skin moved closer to the throne. His movements were slow and careful, like someone very wise and very old. "I am Elder Kess," he said. "I keep the old knowledge. Let me explain the life bond to your young human." Elder Kess began to tell a story. Long ago, when the Corvani were still a young species, they lived on a dangerous planet. Saving someone's life was the most sacred act possible. When someone saved a royal family member, it created a special connection. "The life bond must be honored," Elder Kess said. "The one who saved the royal must prove they are worthy of this connection. If they succeed, great rewards follow. If they fail—" "What happens if they fail?" Dr. Choi asked. General Nora smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "They face the punishment of our ancestors." Queen Vela looked directly into Teho's eyes. "Li Teho, I offer you a choice. Accept the life bond and prove your worth through the ancient trials, or face the consequences of rejecting this sacred connection. What are the consequences? Teho asked. You would be marked as an oath-breaker, Queen Vela said. You and your entire species would be banned from Corvani space forever. Since we control the main trade routes in this part of the galaxy, your people would be cut off from other alien civilizations. Dr. Choi grabbed Teho's arm. That would end humanity's chance of joining galactic society before it even begins, she whispered. And if I accept? Teho asked. Queen Vela's expression changed. For a moment she looked almost hopeful. If you accept, you must come to our home world. There you will face 3 trials that test your mind, your skills, and your heart. These trials will last 1 year. 1 year. Teho felt his stomach drop. During this time, you will live among us as my bonded companion. In your human terms, you might call it a marriage, though it is not the same thing. It is a joining of 2 people to create an alliance between 2 species. The throne room fell silent. Teho could hear his own heartbeat. The choice was impossible. If he refused, humanity would be cut off from the stars. If he accepted, he would have to leave everything he knew behind. General Nora stepped forward. Again. Your Majesty, surely you cannot be serious about bonding with this weak creature. Look at him. He is small and fragile. How can he possibly pass the ancient trials? That is for the trials to determine, Queen Vela said firmly. Elder Kess moved closer to Teho. Young human, I have lived for 800 of your years. I have seen many species come and go. The trials you would face are not just tests of strength. They test the deepest parts of who you are. What exactly would I have to do? Teho asked. The first trial tests the mind, Queen Vela explained. You must navigate the Void Maze, a puzzle that has challenged Corvani for thousands of years. The second trial tests your abilities. You must prove you can solve problems that would challenge our greatest engineers. The third trial tests your heart. You must show wisdom in making difficult choices. Dr. Choi looked at her recording devices, then at Teho. These trials, she said to Queen Vela, are they meant to be passed, or are they designed to fail? They are designed to reveal truth, Queen Vela answered. Some have passed, many have failed, but never has a member of another species attempted them. Teho thought about his family back on Earth, his parents, his younger brother Lee Ji-hoon, who worked as an analyst for the government. He thought about all the humans who dreamed of exploring the stars and meeting other species. If I fail the trials, what happens to me? You would be sent to serve on one of our frontier worlds, General Nora said with satisfaction. It is not death, but it is exile from both your world and ours. And if I succeed? Queen Vela's glowing eyes became brighter. If you succeed, the life bond would be complete. Our species would become true allies. Your people would gain access to our technology, our trade networks, and our protection. Humanity would join the community of advanced species. Teho closed his eyes and thought. When he opened them again, his voice was steady. I accept. General Nora made a sound of disgust. Elder Kess nodded approvingly. Dr. Choi looked worried but proud. Queen Vela stood up from her throne and walked down the steps until she was standing in front of Teho. She placed her crystal hand on his shoulder. Her touch was warm, not cold, like he had expected. Then it begins, she said. Lee Teho of Earth, you are now bound to Queen Vela of the Corvani Empire. May wisdom guide you through what comes next. As the words echoed through the throne room, Teho realized there was no going back. He had just agreed to something that would change his life forever. The only question now was whether humanity would benefit from his choice, or pay the price for it. The Corvani homeworld was unlike anything Teho had ever imagined. Cities of crystal and light stretched across continents, connected by bridges that floated in the air. The sky was purple, and 3 moons hung like jewels above the horizon. Teho stood on the balcony of his new quarters in the royal palace. It had been a week since he accepted the life bond, and tomorrow would begin his first trial. He felt very far from home. The view is beautiful, but I can see you are troubled. Teho turned to find Queen Vela approaching. She had changed from her formal robes into simpler clothing, but she still glowed with inner light. "I keep thinking about my family," Tae-ho said. "My brother Ji-hoon is probably working day and night, trying to figure out how to help me, but there's nothing he can do from so far away." Queen Vela joined him at the balcony railing. "Tell me about this brother." "He's younger than me, but much smarter. He works for our government, analyzing problems and finding solutions. He always said I was the brave one and he was the brain one." Tae-ho smiled sadly. "I could really use his brain, right now." "Perhaps you have more of his brain than you think," Queen Vela said. "Tomorrow you will find out." The next morning, Tae-ho was taken to a chamber deep beneath the palace. Elder Kess was waiting for him, along with several other Corvani officials. General Nora was there too, watching with her cold eyes. "The Void Maze," Elder Kess announced, "has been used to test Corvani minds for 3,000 years. It is not a physical maze, but a puzzle that exists in mathematical space." Tae-ho was led to a chair surrounded by glowing screens. When he sat down, images appeared in the air around him. They looked like geometric shapes floating in darkness, connected by lines of light. "You must find a path through the maze," Elder Kess explained. "But the path is not visible. You must calculate it using the patterns you see. Most Corvani take several days to complete this trial. Some never finish at all." Tae-ho stared at the floating shapes. They seemed to dance and shift, never staying in the same position for long. He tried to understand the pattern, but it made no sense. Hours passed. Tae-ho's eyes hurt from staring at the screens, his neck was stiff, and his hands were shaking from stress. The Corvani officials whispered among themselves, and he caught words like failing and hopeless. General Nora stepped closer. "Perhaps this human is not as special as you thought, Your Majesty." Queen Vela said nothing, but Tae-ho could feel her watching him. He closed his eyes and tried to think like his brother would think. Ji-hoon always said that the most complicated problems usually had simple solutions hidden inside them. When Tae-ho opened his eyes, he tried to ignore the dancing shapes and focus on the lines that connected them. The lines formed patterns, and the patterns followed rules, mathematical rules. "It's not about the shapes," he said suddenly. "It's about the connections between them." He began to work faster, using basic mathematics that any human child would know. Addition, subtraction, patterns that repeated. The Corvani had made the maze look complicated, but underneath it was based on simple number relationships. In 2 more hours, Tae-ho found the path. The maze opened, and a doorway of light appeared in front of him. The chamber was silent. General Nora stared at him with surprise and anger. "Impossible," she said. "No one has solved the void maze that quickly." Elder Kess walked over to check the readings on his instruments. His white crystal face showed amazement. "He did not solve it the way we solve it," Elder Kess said. "He used a completely different approach. Instead of trying to map the entire maze, he found patterns that led directly to the solution." Queen Vela approached Tae-ho's chair. "How did you know to look for patterns?" "My brother taught me," Tae-ho said, still feeling surprised by his success. "He always said that humans are good at finding shortcuts. We don't always take the obvious path." "Interesting," Queen Vela said. "Your species thinks differently than ours." General Nora was not happy. "One trial means nothing. He still has 2 more to face." That evening, Tae-ho was eating dinner in his quarters when Queen Vela arrived unexpectedly. She seemed different somehow, less formal. "May I join you?" she asked. "Of course, Your Majesty." "When we are alone, you may call me Vela," she said, sitting across from him. "I wanted to talk to you about today." "I was just lucky," Tae-ho said. "No, it was not luck. You approached the problem in a way no Corvani ever has. We are taught to be thorough, to examine every detail. You ignored most of the details and focused on what was important." Vela paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "There is something you should know about these trials. They are not just tests for you, they are tests for me as well." "What do you mean?" "For many years, the Corvani Empire has been looking for other species to join our alliance. We have tested dozens of different races, but none proved suitable. They were either too aggressive, too primitive, or too similar to ourselves." Tae-ho put down his fork. "You've done this before?" "The life bond ritual, yes. but it has always ended in failure. The other species could not pass the trials, or they did not show qualities we needed. What qualities are you looking for? Vela stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the 3 moons. The galaxy is changing, Tejo. New threats are emerging from the far reaches of space. The old ways of doing things are not enough anymore. We need allies who can think in new ways, solve problems we cannot solve, see solutions we cannot see. She turned back to him. Today, you showed me that humans might be those allies. But there are still 2 trials left, and each one will be harder than the last. What happens if I fail? Then you will be sent to a frontier world, as General Nora said. But more importantly, humanity will lose its chance to join the galactic community for at least a generation. Tejo felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. No pressure at all, he said with a weak smile. Vela almost smiled back. Indeed. But remember, you are not just representing yourself anymore. Every choice you make, every solution you find, teaches us something about your species. After she left, Tejo stood on his balcony and looked up at the alien stars. Somewhere among them was Earth, where his brother was probably still working late into the night. I hope you're right about humans finding shortcuts, Ji-hoon, he whispered to the purple sky, because I'm going to need all the shortcuts I can get. Tomorrow would bring the second trial, and he had no idea what to expect. But for the first time since accepting the life bond, he felt a small spark of hope. Maybe humans really did have something special to offer the galaxy. The second trial took place in space, on a massive station that orbited the Corvani homeworld. As Tejo's shuttle approached the station, he could see that it was damaged. Pieces of metal floated around it like a cloud of broken dreams. Commander Rax, a Corvani military leader with deep red crystal markings, met Tejo at the airlock. His presence felt dangerous, like a storm waiting to break. Human, he said with disgust. This is the Sentinel Station. It guards our home world from attack. 2 days ago, it was sabotaged. The life support systems are failing, and the defense weapons are offline. Elder Kess and Queen Vela were also present, watching from a safe observation deck. Through the windows, Tejo could see Dr. Han Min-ji from his original ship. She was an engineer who had volunteered to help however she could. Your task, Commander, Rax continued, is to repair the station using only the materials available here. No new parts, no outside help except from your engineer friend. If you succeed, the station will protect our world again. If you fail, it will fall into our sun within 6 hours. Tejo looked around the station. Everything was broken or damaged. Wires hung from the ceiling like dead snakes. Computer screens flickered with error messages. The air smelled like burned electronics. This is impossible, he said. Yes, Commander Rax agreed with a cold smile. That is the point. Dr. Han Min-ji came over to Tejo. She was a small woman with bright eyes and oil stains on her clothes, from working with machines. I've been studying the damage, she whispered. It's bad. Really bad. The main computer cores destroyed, the power coupling are fried, and the atmospheric recyclers are completely broken. Can we fix it? Not the normal way, but maybe. She paused, thinking hard. Maybe we don't need to fix everything. Maybe we just need to make it work differently. They spent the next hour exploring the station. Tejo was not an engineer like Min-ji, but he had learned basic repair skills during his training. More importantly, he was good at seeing connections between different things. Look at this, he said, pointing to a section of wall that had been blown open by the sabotage. This isn't just damage. It's actually opened up access to systems that are normally separate. Min-ji examined the exposed wiring and pipes. You're right. If we reroute the power through these damaged sections instead of trying to repair them, we might be able to create new pathways. They began to work. Instead of fixing the broken systems, they connected them in ways they were never meant to be connected. They used pieces of the damaged hull as new circuit boards. They turned broken pipes into makeshift computer processors. Commander Rax watched them with growing confusion. What are they doing? This is not how repairs are supposed to work. From the observation deck, Queen Vela studied Tejo's methods with great interest. They are not following our engineering principles at all, she said to Elder Kess. No, the old Corvani replied. They are creating their own principles. Hours passed. Tai-Ho and Min-Ji worked without stopping, turning the damaged station into something completely new. It was not pretty, and it was not elegant. But slowly it began to work. "Power restored to main systems," Min-Ji announced. "Life support is stable," Tai-Ho added, checking a screen made from 3 broken displays connected together. "Defense systems online," Min-Ji said with surprise. "I can't believe this is actually working." Commander Rax ran diagnostic tests on the station. Everything checked out perfectly. The station was not only repaired, it was actually working better than before. "How is this possible?" he demanded. Tai-Ho was exhausted, but he smiled. "We didn't try to put everything back the way it was. We made it into something new, something better." Queen Vela entered the station to inspect their work personally. She examined the unusual connections and improvised repairs with fascination. "This is remarkable," she said. "You have created solutions that our finest engineers never would have considered." "Because your engineers are too good," Tai-Ho said. "They know too much about the right way to do things. Sometimes not knowing the right way helps you find a better way." Commander Rax was clearly unhappy with the results, but he could not argue with success. "The trial is completed," he said grudgingly. Back on the homeworld, preparations began for the 3rd and final trial. Tai-Ho had only 1 day to rest before facing the test of heart. That evening, Queen Vela visited him again in his quarters. This time she brought news that made his stomach turn cold. "There has been a development," she said. "2 of our colony worlds are on the edge of war with each other. They have been arguing about mining rights in their star system for decades, but now the situation has become critical. Ships from both sides are gathering for battle." "What does this have to do with my trial?" "The test of heart requires you to solve a problem that even our wisest leaders cannot solve. You must go to the disputed system and find a way to prevent this war. If you succeed, thousands of lives will be saved. If you fail, war breaks out and people die." "Yes, and you will have failed the final trial." Tai-Ho sat down heavily in his chair. "No pressure at all," he muttered, remembering his conversation with Vela after the first trial. "There is something else," Queen Vela said, and her voice was troubled. "General Nora and some of the other nobles do not want these trials to succeed. They believe humans are too weak to be worthy allies. They may try to interfere with the final trial." "You mean they might sabotage it?" "It is possible. You must be very careful." The next day, Tai-Ho traveled to the disputed star system on a small diplomatic ship. With him came Elder Kess as an observer, and Dr. Choi Yu-Na to help with cultural matters. The 2 colony worlds, Keth Prime and Vel Minor, faced each other across the darkness of space like angry giants. Between them, warships moved in threatening patterns. "The situation is simple," Elder Kess explained as they approached the meeting station. "Both colonies need the rare minerals found in the asteroid belt. There is enough for both, but they cannot agree on how to divide it fairly." "Have they tried sharing it?" Tai-Ho asked. Dr. Choi shook her head. "Corvani culture values individual achievement. Sharing resources equally is seen as weakness." As their ship docked with the meeting station, Tai-Ho wondered how he could possibly solve a problem that had puzzled diplomatic experts for decades. He was not a politician or a negotiator. He was just a young human who had gotten in way over his head. But as he prepared to meet with the leaders of both colonies, he remembered something Queen Vela had said. The trials were not just tests of what he could do, but tests of how humans thought differently. Maybe thinking differently was exactly what this situation needed. The fate of 2 worlds, and perhaps the future of human-Corvani relations, now rested on his ability to find a solution that no one else had been able to find. The meeting room on the neutral station was filled with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Governor Seth of Keth Prime sat on one side of the table, his crystal skin glowing angry red. Across from him, Governor Yila of Vel Minor pulsed, with cold blue light that showed her contempt. "This is pointless," Governor Seth said, not looking at Tai-Ho. "We have been arguing for decades. What can one small human do that our greatest diplomats could not?" Governor Yila agreed with her. "Enemy for once. The human is just delaying the inevitable. Keth Prime has been stealing our rightful mining claims for too long. War is the only solution now. Taeho looked at both governors, then at Elder Kess and Dr. Choi. Everyone expected him to fail. Maybe they were right. "Can you show me the asteroid belt?" he asked. A holographic display appeared in the center of the table. Thousands of asteroids floated in space between the two colony worlds, each one containing valuable minerals. "The problem," Governor Seth explained with impatience, "is that both our colonies need those minerals to survive. There is enough for one colony to prosper, but not enough for both." "Actually," Taeho said, studying the display, "there seems to be plenty for both colonies. The asteroids stretch across a huge area." "You do not understand," Governor Yila said, coldly. "Only certain asteroids contain the minerals we need. Those specific asteroids are what we fight over." Taeho manipulated the holographic controls, highlighting different groups of asteroids. "These ones here contain iron and carbon. These ones have rare metals. And these ones—" He paused, noticing something odd. "What are these asteroids made of?" Elder Kess looked at the display. "Those are the empty ones. They contain only common rock and ice. Worthless?" "Not worthless," Taeho said, his excitement growing. "Essential." Both governors stared at him. "What do you mean?" "You're both thinking like miners, only seeing value in the rare minerals. But I'm thinking like an engineer. Those worthless asteroids are exactly what you need to solve your problem." Choi leaned forward. "Explain." Taeho stood up and began pacing around the holographic display. "Instead of fighting over the mineral-rich asteroids, why not work together to move them?" "Move them?" Governor Seth laughed harshly. "Asteroids are massive. Moving them is impossible." "Not impossible. Just expensive and difficult if you work alone. But if you work together..." Taeho manipulated the display to show his idea. "You use the rocky asteroids as building material to construct mobile mining platforms. Then you move the mineral-rich asteroids to processing stations near each of your colonies." The room fell silent as both governors studied the plan. "It would require both colonies to cooperate," Governor Yila said slowly. "And share technology," Governor Seth added. "Yes," Taeho said, "but it would also mean both colonies get all the minerals they need instead of fighting over scraps." Elder Kess was examining the plan with interest. "This approach would require months of joint construction projects. The two colonies would have to work closely together, which means they would have to stop thinking of each other as enemies." "Doctor,"